Before we start the meeting, we're going to take a picture of the Historic Preservation Commission in action. So, sorry, you'll be delayed 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, and if you...
I was told.
Yes, gussied up is the word. So, with that, our photographer. So,
Are we staying seated for this?
yeah, we're at meeting. No, this is a snapshot. Oh, yeah. Hello? He's got my camera and he's already bitching about it. Nope, no.
Warren, you need the camera. Where's the makeup people?
Well, this is preservation. It's a preserved phone. Thank you. When we were doing the awards thing, the state had asked us for a picture of the HPC. That's the excuse for this. This is obviously a vanity picture for me, so thank you all.
Oh, okay.
But we can use it, you can use it. Yes, yes. Oh, the entire wall.
Call that the I Love Me wall.
And interestingly enough, at the end of the evening, the photo will be outdated, so you'll have to do this again. So, all right. Need glasses here.
You mean you're leaving that quickly? At the end of the evening?
What? I
It'll be
didn't,
out of date?
yeah, this is the last meeting. All right, all the fun. This is the Historic Preservation Commission, December the 16th, 2024. It's now a few minutes past 6 o'clock. In compliance with the Open Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe this meeting is being held in violation of that act, they should state so at this time. May I have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Copeland.
Here.
Mr. Carroll.
Here.
Mr. Becker. Mr. Stevenson.
Here.
Mr. Testa.
Here.
Ms. Pisagno. Yes, here. Thank you. Ms. Wilson-Stridick.
Here.
Mr. Hammerin. Thank you.
Minutes from November 25th, 2024. You've had a chance to look at those minutes. Do I have a motion to accept them?
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Which one?
You can answer.
Yes.
Mr. Carroll.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Testa.
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno. Ms. Wilson-Stridick.
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolutions, Cluey, excuse the pronunciation, 501 Hughes Street, Block 1049, Lot 10.01, Resolution 2024-40, and Stevenson, 233 Cape Hart Lane, Block 1031, Lots 38.02 and 39, Resolutions 2024-41. Do I have a motion to accept those resolutions?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Mr. Becker. Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes, but abstain on Cape Hart Lane.
Thank you. Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Ms. Basagno,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stratic,
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Applications approved or denied in review. You've had an opportunity to review those. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Stevenson. Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson.
Yes.
Mr. Testa,
Yes.
Ms. Basagno,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stratic,
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin.
Yes.
Thank you.
First order of business is old business, CMC of Cape May LLC, 721 Beach Avenue. This is Block 1064, Lot 16. This is a non-contributing building. We're going to discuss railings and a pool fence. Come up to the table there and make yourself comfortable. Would you turn on the mics so the light is green? We need your name and relationship to the property, please.
My name's Gwen Finley, I'm the owner.
Eric Bednar, owner.
Scott Johnson, their contractor.
Thank you.
Well, last time we were here, you told us to come back with different samples of different materials, and so now I have 3 different samples of 3 different materials. We're trying to replace the fencing around our, I don't know if you know where the Heritage is. This is the Heritage, and I'll give you a picture. This is our, and while we're doing that, we were going to replace the chain link fence around the pool as well.
You just hand these up here.
Right now, there's wood railing there that the maintenance on it is becoming unbearable as far as rotting, the weather, the sand, et cetera, painting. So that's why we came to the conclusion that we need to change that railing. So when we came here last time, we brought in vinyl, but it was the thicker vinyl with the thicker mounts that he didn't like. Remember, you didn't like the thick mounting.
Going to lay it on me, aren't you?
So now we have aluminum, we have vinyl with smaller mounts, and we have TimberTech. So
What what we had talked about at our last meeting, as I recall, is a TimberTech or that kind of product is built the same way you would use wood.
That's understandable.
And that would have a better look than either the aluminum or the vinyl.
Well, I have a bunch of hotels that do have the aluminum. The problem with the TimberTech is the mounting is plastic. So we're worried about on the 3rd floor to have plastic mountings if people leaning against the
Two people
railings.
my size could break that plastic.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
no.
what we're worried about. And so I did notice that a lot of the hotels have aluminum. So that's why we went to get,
Now, that aluminum is also available in white
yeah, it would
to
be,
match pretty much what we have now. They're sturdy. The reason I'm looking at these railings here is we can visually inspect these mounts, those mounts. We can visually inspect anything that could possibly go wrong with them. I have witnessed myself while there doing repairs at the hotel. They're 8-foot sections. You might have 3 or 4 guys leaning their entire weight against them, which, and when you're up 3 stories, kind of like scary seeing, 3 linebackers leaning against a railing that's up there. I'll show you here. Now, this is very similar.
What's up there now is wood, right?
What's that?
What's up there now is wood.
Yeah, and it's starting to rot, it's starting to go.
But I think one of the reasons why we were really concerned about not so much even just the materials, but the shapes of what you're going to do is because the railings on your structure are so prominent. It's just railings.
The only
Ones
one,
that you didn't like had the same shape, and you didn't like the mountain.
Yeah, I'm not so sure it was I who didn't like them, but nonetheless, it was the idea of, because they are so prominent, it was the idea of attempting to come closer to the spindles
which we wanted to do.
that you had.
Everybody shot it down because they didn't like the mounting
And
on it. It
everybody
was
that has
thicker.
this.
Sorry,
The original,
maybe I'm not having that as a recollection.
yeah, the larger sample I brought in, now, as I told Mr.
Can I just
Becker.
interrupt for a second? Because the way we left it last, my understanding, my recollection, and I'll mention a manufacturer's product, but AZAC, where you can buy AZAC pretty much in the dimensions of wood. And you could then construct the railing system pretty much the same as wood. That would represent what's currently there. And once it's installed, should be as secure as what you have had, and should reflect Cape May, not aluminum and not shiny stuff. But so AZAC is just one manufacturer, but they make multi-dimensional. It's a solid material. You cut it and carpenter it. the
Well,
same
that's why
way.
we did get the TimberTech. That was the closest we could come to the AZAC. That's what. the
Well, TimberTech is made by AZAC,
Yes.
And
So, but it's
and
their
that is
mounting
this sample here. I
system-
don't know if you want to take a look
Their
at it.
mounting system is plastic.
Yeah. Because I'm putting the same material up, and this is not TimberTech.
That's Trex, but it's similar. The TimberTech has
can we really, I don't want to be overly impatient here. We're not talking about a product like that. We're talking about buying a product that has the same dimensions as wood and is constructed the same way as wood. That's what we left the meeting with last month, not some other aberration. I mean, that's the problem.
Do you remember us talking about stick-built?
No.
Okay, because I think we did. And that's essentially what we were
I just want
saying.
to point out from the meeting minutes last time, just to help you guys clarify. HPC suggested stick-built with a matte finish vinyl material. So that's what we thought we were agreeing upon that we would see.
We
next-
didn't
Stick-built
get
with
it.
a
We asked you
vinyl?
what would you suggest, and we were told that you weren't allowed to suggest a product. So that's why we're kind of guessing here as to what.
The reason we were referring to stick-built was because it is the individual crafting of pieces put together piece by piece by piece on site, as opposed to prefab manufactured stuff.
In the same way that you would build with wood. That's why it's called stick-built.
Well, then, if we can't do something like that, well, all the hotels that have the aluminum, would we be able to
The hotel right next to
try to
mine
get to
has
us?
square
I have pictures of all the hotels on the beachfront that do have the aluminum. I can't even imagine the time that it
Half
would
of them
take
have
to
exactly what this
build
is and what this
the
is.
railings that we have. And we're not going to get them as that colonial spindle that we had with the original
Well, maybe we-
vinyl that we brought that in.
Maybe we can cut to the chase. Maybe this will help you. This material, you can stick build this because you can buy each of the individual components, the top rail, the bottom rail, the spindles, and the posts, right? And you can nail it together, much like you would with wood, or screw it together, right? So is that something that is one of the options you're proposing?
It was an option. It's not all the options, but it was one. The
But this
other
is one of the
option was the aluminum that all the other hotels seem to have.
Okay, thank you.
So we had two options.
That prefab listed that it's a prefab compared to stick-built.
So prefab will work. I think the issue that folks were finding less than desirable were the connection pieces that are required with the vinyl product.
That's
because-
true.
Yeah,
This is a smaller mount.
This is a smaller amount than what
Remember
we
the other
brought
one
in.
is,
was
actually.
thicker.
It is.
Now, the only reason I brought this in again is, as you see inside here, this has an aluminum channel, which everything connects to that aluminum. which that gives it its strength, that gives it its durability for people to lean against it. And such as this here, this would be going into aluminum, this would be going into aluminum here.
And it comes in white.
And it does come in white. So it wouldn't be that much of a difference from the look that we have right now. If we went to the aluminum, it would give us the strength and durability that we're looking at, that we're looking for to keep people from plummeting 4 stories down. Yeah, that's my goal, is safety. My goal is safety for their clients, their guests that come to these hotels.
So which of the 3 options also incorporate the spindle form that's currently there?
None of them.
So that's no longer on the table?
No other one, just the one that I
Just
had,
the one
that I
we
had
brought
brought in
in.
last time.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, that is, that one, all 3 of these, the aluminum, this one, and the other one, exceed IBC code, which means that it can be used on a commercial building. There are certain ones out there that cannot be used on commercial buildings. They're only made for 1- and 2-family dwellings, which would be like a porch, maybe a balcony.
Do you have pictures of all the hotels that have the?
I think I
That
do.
doesn't make any difference. We evaluate each property on its own merit. We don't know what happened.
Yeah, here you
Oh,
go.
okay,
With
With
collection.
right. And I do think it says we're allowed to use aluminum if we needed to. It's just as,
The only
these
thing
would
is, when
come
they say
in
stick-built, it's the
sections.
same as,
These would
if
come
I'm
in
building at the
sections.
hotel, they come
So
in
that's
sections.
our worry, is
Yeah, and
putting it, it's plastic that's held it together. So I'm more worried about any type of liability that I might have, that somebody leans against it and it doesn't hold for them. So,
yeah, according to your book there, it says that we're allowed to put up vinyl, we're allowed to, being a non-contributing member of Cape May. And that's why when I brought in that first original, trying to stay with the historic look of Cape May, and as I told you, I have worked on many historic homes, the George Howe Mansion in Philadelphia, which was a high hollow, a couple homes from the 1600s in Bucks County, many, and a few more in Newtown, New Hope, Montgomery County. So, I was trying to stay with more of a historic look and try and match kind of what we had there with that type of spindle, with the colonial type spindle.
we just can't find it. and it-
What you're doing, that TimberTech, that TimberTech I'm actually installing right now, and it's actually a lot stronger than there's actually an I-channel that goes in between that top
There
rail.
is a plastic that slides down into that.
It's
and
a,
that
it's a
snaps
full
down over top.
composite, right. That slides over top of that, as well as the bottom. It
Exactly.
slides over top of it as
Now,
well.
if you look at that mount, if you look at the TimberTech mounts, very similar on the bottom. They have a little triangle that comes out, 2 screws in, a couple screws up.
They're pretty substantial, and it's actually metal, it's not this.
Well, there is one that is metal, and it has a little frame on it. But my question is, and not looking into that so much, I didn't know if they had it in something similar to what we were looking for. The ones that I saw that were approved for commercial, or that weren't approved for commercial, have the metal piece, and then it has a small plastic piece that attaches underneath that is just held there by a piece of rivet.
Yeah. But going with something like this that's hidden would get rid of exactly what we talked about at the last meeting with that large clip on the outside.
Okay, I understand.
Large mounds.
Now, that has a smaller mount to it.
Does.
It does have a smaller mount.
That also comes in
Is it a matte white?
a textured white
Yes,
finish.
yes.
That comes in a textured white finish, which isn't glossy, isn't shiny. And even if it does have a slight shine to it, with our weather here and the sand, the salt, people
It would be
handling them,
just like this, though, only
yeah,
in white.
in more of a matte finish.
I just took 30 seconds and looked on the internet for spindles that are AZAC or an AZAC product. A spindle similar to what you have is a 2.5-inch by 32 and is available. So,
By 32-inch,
high.
we have to do 42.
Well, you have
Again-
bottom rail and a top rail.
Oh, understood, but the railing has to be 42 inches high.
But if you were going to make it out of wood, you would still have, it'd be off the floor, and then you could put a double rail up at the top the way it's done in wood. I'm not suggesting that product, but there it is. I mean, it looks like,
Yeah, yeah.
So the 32 would work, because you would have the 3-inch space at the bottom, a
Yeah.
3.5-inch bottom rail, and a 3.5-inch top rail, so that'd be 32 plus 10, which would be 42.
But now you're asking me to get a bottom rail and have somebody construct each one of the sections.
Yes.
Which,
yes,
as
exactly.
opposed to these, where the section comes, we buy it in sections.
So that's,
So would we not be able to have like both options, whether or not we can find somebody that's going to build
Yeah, why can't we
all
have
those sections for me, the time and the cost and the effort that that would put in, versus buying aluminum, which is allowable, and it comes in the sections, so we just have to install the sections, versus having somebody sit there for 6 months or so trying to, by hand, put these in. We're actually giving up the look that we liked with the vinyl and coming with, we've had that look for over 50-something years. So now we're willing to go with this, and because of the strength of it and because of the installation of it.
so there's nothing that would prohibit you from prefabricating 8-foot sections out of the material that you gave us, or.
Time and
AZEK
effort and money,
material.
I guess.
Say it again?
Time, effort, and money.
Now, my question also is, okay,
We have a
you're
lot of
suggesting this product. I go up and down the strip, I see glass panels on
Well,
various
why is
hotels.
this not-
I see
why can't-
aluminum. There's some that look, to me, like bicycle racks on one hotel.
Yeah.
There's another one that has wire mesh railings, aluminum wire mesh railings that are relatively new. This gives us somewhat of a look into white.
Avondale, which is right across the street, has square AZAC. It looks just like this, just a
Well,
style that we like.
as I mentioned, each project is evaluated
Yeah.
by the
But
Historic
you say
Preservation
aluminum
Commission.
is-
So are
and
you
so-
going to
Non-contributing.
say that we can't buy already made sections, that we have to build it ourselves? Is that what you're telling me? That's the only way we'll get an approval? Like, we can't just go buy the sections of the railings
Because now they
that
like
we
the
need?
spindles that we have.
Well,
That's my choice of what kind of spindles I want to put up.
That's what they want us to do.
Well, you said there's there was no spindles available in AZAC.
Yeah,
In
but
30
that's not
seconds, we
made.
brought them up
That
to say
you
that.
have to
That
make,
means I have to
not
sit
in
there, me and him have to
sections.
sit there for 7 months, building sections of this.
We have 100 and some sections of railings.
Yeah, that means we're hand-making railings now.
I think you're
Whereas you do allow aluminum, so
What do you, I mean,
why can't
You're
we
making
say?
everything sound so much more impossible to meet your goal to do
this
a
isn't my
product.
goal first. That's
Now, that one that you're looking at that can be in white, I mean, even look how small the top rail is, the bottom rail, the distance between, and the
man.
minimum size of the balusters in it. It would be a very, very cheap look on a nice-looking building behind it. And your railings are a very important visual aspect. You're right there in the center of town, you know, with all kinds of good things happening, and
I understand.
we're asking you to do something that many, many other people in town are doing. There are,
which ones? I'll go check the property.
well, you know, if you wanted to get in the car, we'd go around and show you about 100 AZAC rails that have been put together. They're not that long to take to put together. You have good people working on them, and they're definitely very, very strong, and they last a long time. Vinyl and aluminum aren't the most long-lasting. Vinyl has the problems of fire, and we've seen buildings burn down because of vinyl on the exterior. Aluminum is, you know, not as durable. So you're looking for, I think, an inexpensive, quick way to solve this.
$70,000 is not inexpensive.
You're not being very polite to us. You're all three trying to talk at once and not really listening to what we're trying to say. We know this town very well. For years, we've been approving projects with AZAC if they're non-contributing, and I have not seen a failure. There certainly hasn't been a collapse where people leaned against it and toppled from a third floor. I don't doubt that these, even with the plastic things, can have some strength to them. But you know, you are right there in the center of our historic district, which is getting more and more attention for what we are doing to keep Cape May this wonderful historic town. Cape May's getting award after award for what we're accomplishing to keep this place special. We're just asking you to contribute as well with a better product that doesn't have these little sleeves that things slip into. You know, you can spot those things a mile away. You know, I walk down, and when I see one of these little vinyl things all put together, you know, I feel like I'm in Plasticville or, you know.
Well, I mean, here's really the difficulty. You've got, you've got technically available a number of sources you could use, and you've looked at them. The difficulty for us and for me is that your existing wood railings with those spindles are very particular. They're attractive, and they're a large part of the look of the building. So I think what we're saying is you should exert every effort not to drop down to this, but to figure out how you can replicate those spindles, possibly they're available in quantity, as was just pointed out, and have the cost of fabricating those into acceptable segments done. We don't really know that it's that much more prohibitive. I mean, it's just not known here today that there's a cost factor involved. But rather than jump to something that's going to make your building safer but less attractive, even as a non-contributing structure, it's important that you preserve that look, especially because it's so prominent. I hear you completely about the materials, and I know that generally what you're saying is those things are acceptable. It's the design that's not acceptable. It's the design that's objectionable because it looks like that.
Well, there are other hotels that have similar designs.
That may well be, but here we're faced with the opportunity of whether or not you'll slip into that. That's our problem. I mean, it may be that those hotels had other circumstances. We can't go back and look at all the things that didn't happen. Right now, we're faced with your application. And our view, I think, my view, is that you should strenuously try to replicate those spindles.
Well, the first one, remember, we brought it in, it had the spindles that
And-
we
and-
have now.
and-
But somebody didn't like
The
the
shininess,
shiny of it.
It was
and
vinyl.
somebody didn't like that.
It was shiny, like,
Well, there's other hotels that have vinyl, and that's why I chose one of these.
Yeah, I
to come
mean,
in.
I'm torn between, I mean, I know you've got the available materials, and that's not a point I would argue with you. What I'd argue with you is the design.
I'll get you on that.
And you're just taking a pretty good-looking facade, and you're turning it into something like that.
So would you let us go back to the vinyl that had the same spindles that we have now?
No.
He wants the AZAC, but he wants those
I-
spindles.
I think,
We're just gonna have to build it if that's what we gotta do now. That's
Or
basically
we
what
keep
they're
what
saying.
we have?
well, you might,
or wood.
Or wood.
Yeah.
Those are our two options.
I mean,
Or we just keep repairing what we got.
the wood maintained properly should last 100 years. I think that's sufficient. You know, the bottom rail, as I recall, on your property, it was flat. It should be on a angle, so it sheds water. If it sheds water like that, a wood railing painted regularly would last 100 years.
Okay. Or we can leave what we have and just keep painting it and fixing it.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Well,
For your time.
well, we've got to
Well, we're
do
gonna-
something with the application.
We're going to make a motion here. Do I have a motion?
Well, before we do, I just have something that might help. So in looking at in more detail at the railing configuration you have, not all of the sections are the same dimension. So what it means is even if you prefabricated them, they would have to be a series of
Sizes.
site-specific and condition-specific prefabricated pieces. So it's not as if you're creating 100 of the identical pieces.
No, we understand that.
So what I'm wondering is there also an option that might meet your criteria with regard to reducing labor on site to have those dimensions prefabricated off-site, so that all you would have to do on-site is come in and attach them to the posts?
The problem being is we're going over existing 4x4 posts. We're putting a sleeve over them. They may not be exactly in plumb. We don't have an option, we don't have a way of plumbing them up because they are built down into a fiberglass base.
So I have a question. With the other two options,
Mm-hmm.
you would not be replacing the posts? You're in all
We're
cases,
going to
you're
keep
reusing
those
the posts?
wooden posts, and we'll be putting a
sleeve
sleeve
over
over top of them, the aluminum sleeve that matches these, that matches the railings themselves.
Because that sleeve and the details you gave us is a 3x3 sleeve.
This is just a sample
It's
piece.
just a sample piece.
But in the details you gave us, the sleeves were 3 inches, so I'm wondering how they fit over a 3.5-inch post.
I thought the sleeves were 4.
They do come in 4.
Okay.
They do come in 4. That they will slip over a 4x4 post.
You still have the same installation problem. If the post is not plumb, you're still going to have to trim to,
It's
fit.
understandable, but it's still simpler. These are already pre-drilled, pre-ready to go. We drop those spindles. in.
actually, I think it might make it more difficult because you're talking about putting a sleeve over a post that's not plumb. So now all of a sudden, you have the same problem. You have to trim each one of those.
It's a quick trim on a metal blade, with a metal cutting blade.
Much
Where-
much quicker than wood.
Well, with wood, I would have to drill each section in for each spindle, match it up exactly to the top rail and the bottom rail.
All
I
right.
don't want wood again. If we're gonna keep wood, we'll just keep painting and refixing what we have.
Well, it's actually the question I'm also holding, is if your concern is that a lot of this railing is already rotted, are you sure that all those 4x4 posts are not rotted at their
I've already
bases?
checked them, they're fine.
Okay.
And that was the reason I'm looking at the mounts that are on these smaller mounts, because I can visually inspect them as I go through the hotel while I'm there doing other repairs. If I see, I was just there recently, fixing something else. I had to go over and replace a fan. As I walked by, I realized one of our wood railings was hanging by caulk. That's all. The screws had deteriorated out, the wood was deteriorated. Another piece of railing, the whole bottom was falling off.
That's a typical maintenance issue. So do I have a motion?
Well, I have a question, and that is, if this is put to a motion for approval of conceptual, I think we know where that might go. Is this something worth tabling again for a return with something you might want to present in terms of building with the materials we've suggested? We tabled it once, and I'm willing to let you come back and
If you like.
try again.
Whatever it was he's saying.
I'll look those up.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we'll
If
come
you're down
again.
to build them,
What'd you say?
up to you guys. That's up to your time and maintenance.
I mean, I'm personally willing to let this come to another session where you could come back and get your approval, but it would have to be along the parameters we've discussed, or we're just going to have to take a vote on it now.
So the only thing we would come back for is to get the AZAC spindles that he's talking about. That's
And then
our
the
only
build.
option right now.
Yeah, or keep it wood.
We're giving you an example. There may be other products available. So, we just gave you one
Yeah,
example.
we thought we had found it with the TimberTech,
Yeah, but
So,
but you don't like the TimberTech?
they want the spindles. So we have to find.
It's,
not a question that we don't like. It's just not matching our historic character. And, you're looking at us with a little bit of contempt because we're.
No, not at all.
forcing- Well, I can certainly feel it going right through me. But I've got to
Well, it's just,
say,
it's confusing for us. Like,
Well-
now we thought you guys want to
well,
find this
well,
or that.
let me just tell you a little bit about our
I
mission.
get where you guys are coming from.
Let me just tell you a little bit about our mission. As a historic district commission in a town, that this is the only one in the country where the whole town is a National Historic Landmark, we have a job of trying to keep this town in character with materials, even with non-conforming, so heights, all those different things are things we have to consider. And I'd just like to show how successful we are. As you look around this room, you're looking at about 50 buildings that were registered for the Library of Congress over 50 years ago, and every one of those buildings is still here and in better shape than it was 50 years ago. We have, as I said, we have national awards for what we're accomplishing, and we're just asking you to upgrade a little bit in your thinking. Obviously, what we're doing is bringing tourists to Cape May. I bet you've never seen a Christmas weekend like you saw this past weekend. In fact, I went into business about the same time you did, and there was no such thing as business after the beach dried up. That was it. So we're benefiting from this, but we all have to do our share to do this. And you're not going to spend that much more than you think just by switching over, and your joints are going to look good. That's going to hold up much, much better than.
Time to build it, because it's just me and him.
Well, you know,
Yeah,
Well, I think you might want to examine some alternatives, and people who could fabricate things that would give you more time to come up with a comparison of costs. That won't happen if we vote this thing down
Is he
tonight.
saying that the spindles come the way ours was in the, what do you say, call it?
Yeah,
The
he just-
AZAC?
yeah.
Yeah, TimberTech is
So
AZAC.
that's what you have now?
Yes, that's what I have, and it actually locks up inside that top rail. There's an I channel that locks up inside.
So are you buying that in sections, or is somebody
No,
creating it
they have to
for you?
drill in,
Yeah, but
match them up,
they're
screw.
all- Yeah, they're all it gives you, you know, the center.
Well, your contractor's drilling in and screwing each
Yeah, we're-
spindle
yeah,
in.
we're doing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you attach it to the bottom rail.
I didn't know they
Just
came
set it on, and then you put either the cap that you have or a different type of rail. There's a bunch of different rails that you can get with TimberTech.
And there's a bunch of different ways you could do that. Given that the under part of that railing is hollow, it gives you an opportunity to even put an angle connection there if you wanted it to be more stable. So what I might suggest to you guys, if you,
Well, that's just a top rail that does snap in. That's just a sample of their top rail. It does snap into a piece of plastic. But that was, again, that was my concern, is I can't see that mount that's underneath there if that's starting to go.
Who is it that, what brand are you using?
The TimberTech.
It's actually TimberTech. I'm
TimberTech?
just doing a different rail. I'm using the same channel on the top rail, but I'm putting a piece of deck board on top of it.
So then, can I
You're
get
using a drink
approved? I
rail.
don't mind the TimberTech. So can we get approved for the TimberTech? I didn't mind it at all. That was one of our choices. That's why we brought it.
I mean, granted, that is going to take us longer to assemble, because
Right.
each piece has to be, if I have an 8-foot piece, I have to put 16 spindles in, which means I have to drill exactly
That's
32
our
holes
problem.
across,
That's
which
our
is fine.
problem. That's our problem.
Yeah.
But I would go with the TimberTech. If you say you're using it and I can find the spindles in it,
Yeah, the spindles, are, they're not the decorative spindles like you have though. I didn't look at that.
what, are there, your spindles square?
Mine are square.
Yeah, that's a
Don't have to
that's a
have
problem.
square.
Yeah, mine are square.
so
You just found them in our thingies.
what I might like to suggest is if you guys could come and speak with us on Tuesday morning and take a look at because there's even a hybrid option, right? What if the top and bottom rails were TimberTech and the spindles are AZAC? I mean, it's the same company.
Well, TimberTech is made by AZAC.
Exactly. So there might be a hybrid approach, or we could do a combination of two different materials and achieve the results you are seeking and we are seeking.
So what do you want us, what were you saying? you wanted
So
us to
if
do?
you guys, so tomorrow morning we have a meeting, but I think the schedule is full, and unfortunately, the following Tuesday is Christmas Eve, so we're not meeting. But that following Tuesday after that, if you would, like we did the first time, if you came on Tuesday morning, we could discuss with you the options, and I would propose or suggest that you bring with you samples, not even samples, but catalog cuts would be fine. We know what the material is. You don't need to bother getting samples made. If you brought catalog cuts of the spindles, the top rail, the bottom rail, and maybe one little drawing of one section, we could probably approve it in review.
What's the date? What was that date that you'll,
Or-
Tuesday?
I'd like to see an application
No, I don't
that is
think-
settled
Sorry
with
about the
those points.
approval and
I
review.
think the discussion point is fine, and I'd urge you to put this into suspension. I will make a motion to table it pending the further disposition, but you're going to go to the review committee, and they're going to come back presumably with an application that actually says and does and has all the things you need to show us.
And that's the hybrid of what he proposed, which was, Mr. Becker proposed, which is.
Maybe.
Well, you can request to table it and consent to an extension for the time of decision, which would allow you time to go meet on a Tuesday morning and then come to the board at a next regular meeting with a proposed selection.
My hope would be if you guys could come on, the next meeting is the 31st of December, if you could come with that approach, we could probably give at least our direction that would align with, I think, what everybody's saying here, so that when you did come back for the full board review, it would likely get approved, would be what I would
And then you could avoid the 3 different test results and all the things that give me the breaking points and all that with.
Took me 2 hours to put these
Yeah, you know, I'll
and
bet it did.
and It took me.
did.
2 hours to read it.
It took me 15 minutes to know I didn't understand it very well. But I would say if you trim that down to what your final proposal would be in a revised application, that would be really helpful, and we could act on it.
Okay, so my next, do I have to go and apply again or anything? or
Nope, just show up, just call Judy and.
Tuesday, the 31st?
Or
We'll be
Yeah.
here.
anytime between 8:30 and 10.
Okay.
So,
Just make an
so
appointment with Judy and she'll tell us.
with the applicant's consent, I'd make a motion to once again table this application, and of course, continuing on with your waiver of the 45-day period from which we have to make a decision. So it's a motion to table.
I second the motion.
Motion by Mr. Testa, seconded by Ms. Wilson Stridick. Mr. Copeland?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Ms. Bisagno?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes.
Mr. Hammerin? Yes. Thank you.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's
You
you
also-
too.
Yes. New business, Jersey Development Group, 930 Washington Street, Block 1093, Lot 9. This is not rated, and it's for 4 new townhouses.
Can I ask why you're doing that? Is a problem in 30 days?
Before you start, could I just ask, are you here for an application or?
All right, but we ran into a problem with this that I sent you.
Okay,
Another
for this?
Because they weren't coming to.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we would have that problem whether it's at that or that.
Okay, so what happens if they don't come in January?
Okay. Wait a minute, wait till we get everybody together here.
Present for further attention, or we deny it without prejudice. That's why it's to the next meeting.
Holidays.
You want to share one of these?
I've got,
Do you want to together?
Okay. 30 days.
got mine
the
marked up,
clock every day.
Start with Jeremy. It's excellent.
Okay,
Good evening, Board, Chairman, Board. Scott Peter, applicant here tonight for 930 Washington Street, Block 1093, Lot 3. Here tonight proposing 4 townhouse-style units, all connected. This is a classic design. All the parking is in the rear, hidden from street view. We have open front porches. Although the ground floor does show a rail, we're not required to put a rail. We just put that so you know it's actually a covered porch. We have 12 by 12 support columns on both floors, along with column brackets, oversized. On the upper fascia, we have columns along with the gable and detailing. Some of the back fascia, we have a dental molding on both the upper and lower decks. Lots of kind of gingerbread on the front of this building. I chose to use a hardy plank smooth siding with some shake accents up in the gables. This is some of the details of the building, just a small part of the presentation. Happy to hear any comments or suggestions, of course, from the board, and if there's any comments from the public as well. This was something I kind of envisioned. There was some houses on Gurney Street. There's probably about 6 of them that are kind of all very close and almost looks like it might be townhouses, but they're not. All different colors, very traditional with towers and, different types of siding, and these are all different colors, so I'm sure you guys might know the house I'm referring to, but that's kind of some of the look I was going after on this site. Sorry the plans are so big. I know we try to have small plans, but that's the best I could do with all 4 connected.
Scott, before we go around the room, at some point, maybe it was in review, there was a discussion about the townhouses facing Washington Street would be turned. Had you considered that? Because you know, right now, the side of the building is facing Washington Street.
Correct.
And it just seems like trying to tie that corner together, that would be a,
I could possibly get a little creative on that. We're still going to have the parking in the back. That's what I did, so everybody kind of enters into Washington Street where the driveway is and kind of parks in the back so you don't see that. But I can definitely get more creative on the Washington Street side. I don't know if I can make it the front, but I can either add some detail or make it more front-like, for sure. But that might just now make the Madison Street look more like a side. But I can try to get creative with that.
well, you got to get creative with that also.
Yeah, I can do that too.
Normally, we go around the room at the moment. I have some real questions about this project. Is someone from the commission interested in making a comment on this before I do?
I did have a question, and it's regarding, on the proposed front elevation, it shows the height of the first floor as being 8 foot 1 inch, I believe. But then when you look at the proposed right side elevation as compared to the proposed rear elevation, it seems as though the garage doors exceed the height of the, and there's no dimensions on here. Like, you know, what would be the height of those garage doors on here?
8 foot, from grade.
Oh, so it would still be the same grade across for the first floor? the
Yes,
joists?
yeah, the first floor is, there's no steps, it's just on grade.
Yeah, it just doesn't look
Yeah.
like that on these elevations.
Okay.
I have more of a procedural question. Mr. Peter, I think you checked off conceptual on this, correct?
Yes.
Are you is this a application that you are intending is destined for the zoning board, planning board?
It is, it's a permitted use, they'll be seeking no variances, so it'll be approved based upon whatever you guys recommend, but there's no variances requested with what I'm proposing here.
So you're going-
This site, for the record, could actually be 6 units. I went ultra-conservative and felt that 6 would be overkill there. I went to 4, but this site could actually hold up to 6 units.
So will you be going in for a site plan application without variance relief?
Correct.
Okay.
So in other words, it won't change from what you guys ultimately agree on here. It won't change from that because there's no variances.
Thank you.
Anything over 2 units triggers the planning board application.
One of the things we discussed at some point, Scott, was to break this up a little bit. We talked about staggering the units, again, to give it a little bit more dimension and fit a little bit better into Washington Street.
I didn't comment on it on my first part of my presentation, but if we could take a moment and look at the site plan, it's substantially staggered because the lot gets narrow, so it's actually got a tremendous amount of definition in the front. That was one of the things I really focused on, so it really looks, it doesn't look just, of course, just looking at a picture does, but when you look at it, it's got so much ins and outs along as it goes down Madison Avenue. On page A10, you could see the site plan and kind of the elevations.
Just, would you let us know, what's the square footage of each of the units? They seem to, they vary, right?
They do, so it probably starts about 2,500, and then it's probably going to go down to about 2,000. Because as you go further down the street, they reduce in size and kind of manipulate it a little.
Well, it's sort of triangular, just
Yes,
a
yep,
lot.
it is. Yeah, it's fatter on one end than the other end, yeah.
I wish I could be more sympathetic with the design. It leaves me really cold. Once again, you've used all the materials that tick the right boxes. You know, you know your ins and outs of what's permitted and it's new construction. I have no objection to the materials. It's just the design. I see how you've stepped it as it goes down Madison. And unfortunately, that means when you're looking up Madison, that view from the south is just one of these pokey outy things that to me looks extreme. Achieving the setbacks that you do from Washington and looking at it from the east makes it look even worse from the south. I wish I could say I had a suggestion to perhaps those who are more skilled than I could raise points about that, but I find that and I know you're here for conceptual, I just find this a very cold design to me. I'd like to, maybe by the end of our comment period, we can give you some more comments, but
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Often
And I know you're here for
appreciate your
conception,
comments.
for-
Yeah, of
and
course. So
usually-
I can take everyone's comments and thoughts, and I'm happy to redesign some things. Of course, you only have so much to work in. You kind of got a box, and we got to work within that. That's why the staggered is, of course, for the streetscape, but also I got to work within setbacks. Sometimes you fix a problem, but now I might cause another one with a setback issue, or now when I go to the planning board, oh, no, you need this because of coverage or because of things like that. So if I did not make it look from Madison from that direction, well, it might trigger a variance, and I'm happy to request a variance if you guys supported that and say, hey, you know what, it's worth it to get a variance to get that kind of building. I'm all for that. And often I feel the planning board is inclined sometimes to hear you guys because it's for the betterment of what you said was so true earlier about what the HPC brings to Cape May. So I'm all for if something I got to do to make it bigger or change something, it just, we might need the support on the back end with the plan.
John is doodling on there.
I would like to say I do agree with Jim. It does leave me cold. The many times that you've been before us, we've always suggested that, maybe if you use some architects that really have experience with dealing with historic districts that could look at our standards and our plans and our energy, and you could come up with different designs. As I look at this, I just think, rather than just these 4 buildings stacked up out of line, maybe a double townhouse facing Washington Street with a little bit more depth to it, and their parking hidden behind it, and then maybe 2 units behind it, or maybe one even bigger house behind it that would kind of fit the size of things. You're a contractor, you're an investor, I know, you want to maximize profits, but it always just seems that it comes off at the expense of the town to save money in construction, to give as much as you can for as little expenditure. And
I don't want to at all be adversary, but that's completely false. If that was the case, I would have squished 6 to 8 units on this site, like all the other buildings surrounding it. Not comparing them, but that is what would be permitted on this size lot. I don't think that fits. I don't think it works. I don't think it would be completely egregious. I'd probably make a lot more money, and it would be good for me, but at the end of the day, I'm going to come in front of you guys again, and I got to represent myself and things that work in this town.
Well, you are making a lot more money because prices have gone up incredibly in Cape May. And a lot of that is because of the work of
I'd like to avoid the economic, I'd like to avoid the economics, but
There's no
I,
denying what you guys do.
Yeah.
When you said it earlier,
Scott.
that the reason they probably have such a busy motel now is because of what you guys represent. I agree. I wish that was the case here, but I just bought it. So I paid those expensive numbers that, it's not something that I'd owned in a long time, so I wish I had.
you've come up essentially with a wedge here, that's what we're seeing. I like to be conceptual. I'd like this, so that it was sort of squared off. You had, it turned the corner, so you had basically 2 aspects to the building, rather than this,
I'm sorry.
like this, Washington,
So a
Madison.
couple things face Washington and a couple things face
I mean,
possibly.
that's sort of the way, I see it squared off, in my view, rather than this.
Although they may all connect, but something might front Washington, something might front Madison.
Again, conceptually, yeah, they could connect.
Okay.
Well, how about just imagining it as one of the showcases that we see around the room? I mean, this is a really visible corner. People are driving in, this is the main thoroughfare. And on that corner, we had a bank. Now we have a property that's going to be developed as a residential property. What we're known for and what drives the traffic that's making everybody so wealthy here is the character of the residential stock and the hotels. So when an architect who's a designer understands that concept, the sophistication they bring into the design then lasts over time. What we see here is a very practical and rentable property with a large amount of storage on the ground level that fronts Madison Avenue. We've also seen many people use those storage areas for extra beds and to exceed the rentable area of their properties. This is a trend we don't like. It's very hard to control. We also have a kind of a false sense of a front here with the railings because it's just a storage area and a parking area. So the living area is actually above. This is typical in other shore towns that don't emphasize the walkability or the history. That's not Cape May. We're all about a friendly, walkable, historic streetscape. And in our design standards, when we ask the designers to look at the impact on the streetscape, that's what we're looking at. It's a very subjective design mission. And the architect that you use doesn't seem to understand it.
I don't want to go back and forth. I want to get it figured out here, but just a couple things. We're, kind of pigeonholed on where we can build. So often, I made it look like it's 3-story, but, had I put it up in the air that high, it would look horrific. You guys know the flood issue you guys been faced with these houses going higher. So I made it so, hey, you know what, that's a front porch. I want to take everyone's recommendations and change it, but I just want to give a little explanation. I made it so it feels like, hey, it's a front porch. You can walk up and it's going to be people sitting there. You walk right up and there's a house. It's not a big foundation out of the ground. I actually took the siding down the side so it doesn't feel so foundation heavy. But again, I'm going to take all the comments and amend this. I just want to, reply just a couple
So
things.
Scott, I appreciate that comment. Problem is, they're not front porches. So what I'd like to refer you to and advise might be super helpful to you is to read our standards from pages 57 through 60 about new construction. I want to read you one really important piece from page 57. HPC priority is compatibility of new construction. Compatibility requires more than similarities of massing or abstract references. It must be a primary objective of the design professional and an integral part of the design process for projects in the district. And it goes on to explain that compatibility means compatible with historic materials, features, size, scale, proportion, and massing to protect the district. And it even goes on to say that new construction in intentional opposition to the historic fabric is also not appropriate. So I don't want to protract this meeting, but I made a list in looking at what you've done, and I would love to have this conversation with you, not now, but there's 13 things that I can clearly identify very quickly that would not be compatible with the fabric, rhythm, materials, and the way that it is divided up between floors. And I don't want to go through that whole list, but I'll just point out 2 of them just as an indicator that
I'm
might help
happy to
you.
hear it if you guys.
Well, what I'd like to propose is you come and see us on Tuesday morning again.
Okay.
Because now that we've seen a more fleshed out proposal, we now have something that we can directly respond to you with, and you can then, of course, take those comments and incorporate them architecturally. But probably the most important thing that I would like to say in this discussion is this is an extremely challenging site. It's an architect's dream to work on this site. And the reason why it's an architect's dream is it is one of the sites that has the greatest opportunity of almost any I know of in Cape May for a bunch of reasons. The first of which is most folks, when they're coming in on Lafayette, if they make the left on Madison, which is the first light, this is sort of the gateway moving towards the beach. And that's an extraordinary intersection because 2 of the 4 corners have beautiful structures on them. 2 of them do not. So we're getting rid of the bank, but what that means is you have this incredible opportunity.
Yay.
You have this incredible, of course, you have this incredible
Put
opportunity
that pressure on me, please.
for contextual remedy. I would call it contextual remediation.
Tom will kill me
Well,
if I don't pull this off right.
but what I'm trying to suggest is that this is a gateway property, and you mentioned something at the beginning of your presentation that, boom, there it is. You talked about those houses on Gurney. So let's talk about those houses on Gurney, right? They are individual structures, and the whole rhythm along Washington Street for 2 blocks there, in fact, I went and looked at it today. Of the 14 houses in that block, 12 of them are gable fronts about 20 to 24 feet wide. So what you're proposing is actually one flat wall of 52 feet on Washington Street, and on Madison, you've got 12 sections that range from like 8 feet to 11 feet with 3-foot setbacks. There's no contextual rhythm like that at all anywhere in town. So this would not only be not compatible, it would actually, I think, qualify as intentionally in opposition to. So I don't want to go much further than that, other than I think we could sit down on a Tuesday morning. I just made a little sketch right now of kind of the Gurney Street
Wow, it's nice.
as an inspiration, as if there were like 4 of these beautiful little houses that had a setback that separated them and created almost a shadow between them. So it almost felt like it was 4. And inspirationally, I would start to look at not only those, but are there other late 1800 kind of inspirational structures that were multifamily guest houses, so that you can get in your head an image that would help you be a contributor to the character of Cape May.
Can I get a copy of that or a picture of that?
Well, I'm really hesitant to give you this.
You just drew that now?
I did,
Wow,
yeah.
you guys a whiz. Did you guys see that picture?
It's scary.
Yes.
Really good.
Except John has property rights and all this.
So here's the thing. I'm not a practicing architect in Cape May anymore, so I don't feel as I have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, it's not just a great concept, but it wouldn't be that exact theme, but I
So
like the idea of it.
I would like to suggest that if you could come and see us also on December 31st, we could have a nice chat about this, and I think we could collectively be co-creators together.
I'd love
Because
that.
this is a
Thank you.
beautiful opportunity you have.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other,
Mr. Briggs, I just wanted to comment too. You know, you've been in front of the board many times, and generally for single-family homes, but they've always had a kind of a similar design, very basic, very simple. And now when you're taking that single-family design, very simple and very basic, and putting it on something with this massing, it exaggerated, exemplifies it, and it kind of makes it look almost like a big barracks. So, you know, hopefully we get to something
I
with a
think we
little
can.
more
I think we can.
architectural imagination.
I'd like to make a comment. First of all, John, that was passion speaking, and that was wonderful. Thank you. All right. That corner used to even be worse than the bank. There used to be an automobile dealership right there. Very, very commercial, very ugly. Across the street, there was a house where children were afraid. It was all falling apart. It was very similar to the one on Broad Street that is really in abject decay. And it has been very wonderful to see how some of the corners have come through, and they really look charming and enchanting. When I opened this, I thought, and you know where I work, Wildwood. It just looked like so many condos that I pass when I go to school. And for that, as John said, that corner is very, very special. And if this is on Madison, and the people are coming in and going to see a side on Washington, that's just not in any keeping with the streetscape that we are trying to create and make things so much better. So I do think that something charming, on this site would be so much better than this.
I think I can do it,
Can
with the help of meeting on
I make a few quick comments? Okay. I agree with everything that everybody has said here, sitting up here. And I'm sure you're going to come back with a beautiful design that's going to really kind of be a gateway. I'm confident of that. Just a couple of things. Have you applied for the demo permit?
Yes. I haven't applied for the demo, but I did get the HPC approval for the demo.
Okay, so it might, okay. So there was that, and then B kind of alluded to it a little bit. As far as that, there are monitoring wells that are on that site currently. Are there any EP,
No. They
any
were put in
environmental?
years ago. Banks often, I've done several bank sites, and that's often a condition banks put on properties because it's public funds, so they have to have those monitoring wells in. But I've got to complete the.
You'll complete that full up?
There's no further, yeah, it's completely.
There's no okay. Yeah, but I agree with everybody else's comments.
One more point I would like to bring. If you come in Washington Street, past that light, and get up to the intersection of Franklin Street, probably the biggest battle we had in the election 4.5 years ago was keeping that corner absolutely as perfection as it was, not letting the Firehouse Museum to be torn down so that a much bigger new building could be put in that area. And everybody was pointing out, we have a bank that has done a beautiful job of blending in a Depression-era post office, a little Gothic chapel, and a little museum. And if you look back at the people that won that election that were basically looking at this exactly the way we are, it showed that what John is showing here is really the will of the people. So, I think listening to us on this will help you an awful lot in
That's why I'm here.
getting this through.
That's why I'm here. So, and I'll come on Tuesday and love to hear, more comments and not take up more time tonight, but I'm here to do what everyone recommends to make it something
May I make
special.
one suggestion? When you come on Tuesday, if you could spend a little time looking for the inspiration of images that you see in town or other historical structures that would be compatible, it might help you get into a place where we'd be able to have a discussion where you're also a creator with us.
For sure.
Yeah?
Before we dispose of this by motion, is there public comment that you want to?
Before we, I presume we're going to table this.
Yes,
Is what you're looking for. So we have that process. But before we have a motion, the public is here. Is anyone in the public like to make a comment?
Just name and address and make sure the green light's on.
Laurel Neschke, 924 Washington Street. So I have the wonderful advantage of living on a beautiful block of Washington Street. It's a very unique block in that so many of the houses are occupied by year-round residents. Word of this project came through, and we were excited because, I also knew about the gas station. I remember it from years ago.
What was a dealership, and they had a
Yeah,
station,
then the gas station, and then we had the bank, and it completely, obviously, doesn't fit into the neighborhood. So, there's a great opportunity, as John has mentioned, to really change that corner and have the building tie into what's already there and make it compatible, which is the overarching theme of your historic standard, or our historic standards. When I looked at the plans, I was, quite frankly, appalled. I felt that whoever designed these plans never read this section of the historic design standards. There was clearly no thought given to orientation. Number 2 on the standards is that the primary building should have similar orientation to the other buildings in the neighborhood, in the area. If you go down Washington Street, if you drive down Washington Street, I could only find 2 houses that were on corners that were oriented differently than being on Washington Street, and they were down near the Seaview. Washington Street is a heavily traveled street for pedestrian traffic. people are constantly going back and forth between the Physic Estate and the mall, and the reason they come to Cape May is to be able to walk around and really get lost in the architecture and the beauty of the city. This plan does absolutely nothing to add to the beauty of our city. The mass of the size of the plan, I know you say you can get 6 units in there. Yeah, maybe you can, but maybe they're not going to be 2,500 square feet each. You look at Betty Fritz's house, who's right next door, and then you look at the scale of this project, and there's a great disconnect. So somehow this rectangular building needs to be reworked so that Betty's house doesn't look like a postage stamp. And the only other comment I really want to make, I only have 3, John, not 13, was the fact that the 4 doors was bothersome to me. You know, the town has a history of, you know, multifamily residents. When I was growing up, I had a girlfriend who rented a studio apartment in the Southern Mansion. All those apartments were accessed through that main, big, beautiful door. You've worked on other projects like that on Washington Street. I just, you know, I think it's fine that if you're going to have a connected property or a connected building where everything is connected, you should have one door and access those separate condos or townhouses through the one main door. Or switch it up, as Mr. Testa suggested, 2 and 2 or 2 and 1. But the way it stands now is I agree with B. It's reminiscent of Wildwood, Myrtle Beach, Ocean City, Maryland, certainly not Cape May. Thank you.
Other comments from the public? Thank you. I agree with the comments that are made and your willingness to consider. Scott, you've been before us before, so I'm sure you'll embrace the ideas.
I will, and I'll take full advantage of the possible off-board meetings to see what we can all bounce off each other.
And then,
Can I make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman?
yeah,
Mr. Peter, given the scope of this project, you're probably going to have to retool this, and you want to take advantage of the Tuesday informal meeting with the review committee. I just marked down here an indefinite extension that will keep you in queue, submitted.
Perfect, thank you.
And then when, after that process plays out and you're ready to come back, you can let Judy know. But that will avoid a
Perfect, thank you.
premature
Yeah.
kind of
Thank
vote
you
on
for
this
that.
now.
Yep.
So if you would, just please execute that.
Yes. Thank you for the suggestion, that's quite helpful.
do I have a motion to table this project?
So moved.
Do I have-
I'm sorry, was that you, Tom?
Yes, second.
Motion by Mr. Becker, seconded by Mr. Carroll. Mr. Copeland?
Yes,
Mr. Carroll?
Yes.
Thank you,
Mr.
everybody. Merry, oops, sorry.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson? Mr. Testa?
Yes.
Ms. Pisagno?
Yes,
Ms. Wilson Stridick?
Yes,
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, thank you.
you too.
Merry Christmas. Well, again, it's open to the public. No public is present, so any issues to be discussed?
Oh, sure. Great.
Merry Christmas. Thanks for taking the picture. I haven't looked at it, though.
Happy holiday.
Okay. Just one thing, tomorrow night,
See what we want you as chair.
Okay? Attention, please.
Sorry, I'm going to wait till the door shuts. Tomorrow night, at the meeting, at the council meeting tomorrow night, HPC, it's really going to kind of be a celebration of HPC. So if anybody can make it, I know contacts have been made, but the first thing is the Preservation New Jersey, the Franklin Street Award. The second thing is going to be the amendment to the National Historic Landmark status. And then the third thing, of course, is going to be a celebration of Warren's time here on the HPC. So I'm hoping that everybody can attend.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay?
What time is that, Lorraine?
5 o'clock.
5 p.m., thank you.
Any other items of discussion?
Should we get dressed up like Tom?
Gussied up.
I thought it was tonight.
It is interesting, though. I did find this picture just recently, and before you go, you might want to take a quick look at it. This is an old trolley in the middle of Cape May, and in there, you'll see the Angel by the Sea where it was. So, yeah, so if you want to take I need this back, though. Anyway, if you want to take a look at it before you go. Yeah, this is my last meeting, and we talked about that last time, so
No more to talk about that. I will say, for those of you who see this is really an impressive piece of public transportation. I mean, not only is the trolley all spiffed up with people inside it, but it's a testimony to how far back Cape May actually had a really good transportation system in our little town. And I don't know whether the jitneys are a return of that, but it just shows you that we can move people around. I've seen it. Yeah, it's great.
Well, it went all the way out to Cape May Point for ski
And-
landing and picked up people there.
So let council take note that we may need an enhancement to our transportation system.
Horses?
Cleaner trolleys.
I think we all want to say thank you personally to you, Warren, not officially, but we know that it's been a long, hard, dedicated slog in many ways. And it's great that you can end it on such a high note with all these accolades. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And everyone, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to
We are
adjourn?
adjourned.
Meeting is adjourned.
Do I make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Warren.
I can't make it more doctor's appointments.
it's
So we-
I understand.
It's hard to plan for all these things.
Yeah, no.
But we're planning other things.
But, yeah, I know. I appreciate your comments.